I'd like to call this meeting of the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners for Saturday, August 12th, 2017 at 8:30 to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner McNinch. Suzanne, would you please call the roll of the commission? Here?
Here.
Here.
Commissioner East had a prior commitment before she was even appointed, and I do not know about Commissioner Young. Would the County Advisory Board members please stand and announce themselves? Thank you all and welcome. Moving to agenda item number 14, approval of the agenda. Chairman, for possible action, the Commission will review the agenda and may take action to approve the agenda. The Commission may remove items from the agenda, continue items for consideration, or take items out of order. Has the Commission had a chance to review the agenda? Questions on the agenda? Seeing none, this is an action item. I'll take it out for public comment on approval of the agenda. Seeing no public comment, I'll bring it back to the Commission for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Valentine and a second by Commissioner McNinch to approve the agenda as presented. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Moving to agenda item number 15, member items, announcements, and correspondence. Chairman, informational. Commissioners may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the Commission. Any item requiring Commission action may be scheduled on a future Commission agenda. The Commission will review and may discuss correspondence sent or received by the Commission since the last regular meeting, and may provide copies for the exhibit file. Commissioners may provide hard copies of their correspondence for the written record. Correspondence sent or received by Secretary Wasley may also be discussed. Member items? Seeing none from the Commission, Director Wasley, do you have anything? Okay. Close agenda item number 15. Move to agenda item 16, County Advisory Boards to Manage Wildlife. Member items, informational. CAB members may present emergent items. No action may be taken by the Commission. Any item requiring Commission action will be scheduled on a future Commission agenda. County Advisory Boards.
Record, Paul Dixon. I had 4 short items here. One, I wanted to thank the department for their distribution of a coyote program, awareness program for Las Vegas. I distributed this around. A lot of positive people are happy that you guys are going to have some classes and public education on this. If anybody's interested, I can show you videos sitting on former Commissioner Ron Lurie's back porch, and there's a coyote from me to Grantaway walking along there. So they are becoming very urbanized in Vegas, and it's nice that you're doing this program. Corey Lytle had sent out, and I don't know if you guys had mentioned it, there was a Resource Concepts prepared a wild horse and burrow management in the Ely BLM district assessment. And I read through that. It's something we haven't taken on here in a while, is talking about feral or wild horses on the range and their impacts. And I wondered whether or not that's something we should be looking at as a filler part of the agenda as we go forward in the future, or something like we talked about trail cameras and other things that are sitting out there, drones. Yesterday, when we had the reptile collectors here, one of the questions that I had is they kept saying that they did not see a difference in their reptile collection over their things, and I would like to ask the department if it's possible to prepare for the 8 permittees, the last 10 years of their collection normalized against collection times and hours, so we can actually look at whether or not they were actually having a consistent harvest or whether or not they're seeing a varying harvest. It'd be interesting to see that rather than looking at all the permittees. Just look at the ones that are currently permitted and take them back 10 years because we know that they've been doing it for a long time. Just take them back 10 years and look at the trends or more. I don't care, but I'd like to see just those guys and what they're doing and whether they're truly, because if they're the major group collecting, they would be the group that would be having an impact and would be interesting to see for them. Lastly, it was brought up to me as a chairman in Las Vegas that as we close some of our urban golf courses to development, as they convert them from golf courses, luxury golf courses to housing developments, besides the legal ramifications of all that, which Commissioner Hobbs is well aware of, there have been several articles published in the Las Vegas Review-Journal on the impacts to the wildlife that we're living on those golf courses and what's happening to the wildlife. And I know that I sent something up to the department and I didn't know. I said that I would bring it up because I was asked to here by my constituents to say that there is a fairly large concern in Vegas by the people who over that stuff, that we have a lot of displaced animals that are either being run over on roads or killed by other methods because we've taken away their environment. And the reason why I kind of see that as interesting is as a worker for Los Alamos National Laboratory out at the Nevada National Security Site now, not former test site. We had a well called Cambridge where we drilled and we were pumping and looking at the migration of radionuclides in the shallow groundwater. In doing so, we formed basically a wetland, a stream in a wetland. We are required by the federal government to maintain that pumping in perpetuity because we formed a wetland and animals use it. So I'm wondering how, when people do urban golf courses and they set up a wetland, how they can take away a wetland and there's not. That to me would seem to be something to look at a minimum, just because it has ramifications greater than that based on my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. Further, Cab?
I don't know which one of these mics. Anyhow, good morning, everybody. Nice day, right? Anyhow, Walter Mandeville, Lyon County Board to Manage Wildlife. And the issue that I want to bring forward today is the annual fishing at the hatchery that's sponsored by the Yerington Lions Club, okay? And that was set up, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It's been working pretty good. But as time passes, the regulation says it's open from sunrise to sunset, okay, for everybody. And those 3 ponds, the outflow ponds, are where the kids fish and learn how to fish. And there's a number of prizes and stuff for the first fish boy, first fish girl, the largest fish, so on and so forth. And then we have a drawing. It's been working pretty good. But this year, when I went out there, I seen a number of adults walking off with stringers full of fish, and the kids went in there to fish, and they couldn't catch anything. There was like 4 fish caught with about a little over 100 young people. So we'd like to see something done. I'm not sure what the answer is, but if they could, through the regulation, restrict the fishing at outflow pond 1, 2, and 3 until the kids' fishing derby is over with. So between 8 to 11, for example. I don't know if that's possible. There's all kinds of issues that are brought out. I know a lot of these fishermen figure that's their right to fish wherever they want, I guess, and they probably do. But not very pretty. And those poor kids, I know the whole effort of the Department of Wildlife is to try to convince young people to get involved in outdoor activities, including fishing. And that's a good opportunity there. Normally, in most years, they caught some pretty daggone nice fish out of those ponds. And those ponds are, you know, from when they hatch a fish, some of those fish jump over the tanks and get into the little tube that goes down to those ponds, and then they grow up to be some pretty good sized fish. And there are some black bass in there also. So anyhow, I wanted to present that, see if we couldn't get a change in that regulation. One of the suggestions is make it all anglers from 12 o'clock to sunset. But the kids don't have to have a license at that age. It's between 8 and 12. Okay? So I just wanted to present that to you, and I appreciate your listening to me, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you all. Further public or cab comment?
Steve Marcus, White Pine County Cab. Yesterday, Commissioner Hubbs made the comment she did not want Nevada to become a sink state. Well, during this last spring, during the shed hunting season, whatever it's called, all the surrounding states shut down shed hunting, which in turn, everybody came to Nevada. It was our cab's request that either the commission or the department look into something where we can protect ourselves as to where everybody does not dump into that eastern part of Nevada and impact all the wildlife. That's just one thing that we needed to bring up. I don't know if it was brought up yesterday or not, but if you could look into seeing into that, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Further cab comment? Seeing no further cab comment, we'll close agenda item number 16. Move to agenda item number 17, recognition and appreciation. Chairman Wallace and Secretary Wosley. And we'll start with Commissioner Drew. Commissioner Drew will be recognized by the Commission and the Department of Wildlife for his 6-year commitment of service to the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners and the state of Nevada. Commissioner Drew was on the commission for 2 3-year terms beginning July 1st, 2011 and concluding June 30th, 2017. And I'll turn it over to Director Wosley to start off.
Thank you, Chairman Wallace. Knowing that I was going to have the opportunity to say some words about past Commissioner Drew, thought about opportunities in life where you have a chance to say something about somebody, and those opportunities are pretty rare. It's usually if you're the best man at a wedding or if somebody retires. So I feel that I'm personally blessed to have the opportunity to share some of the experiences that I had in working with Commissioner Drew. As I tried to kind of categorize and compartmentalize Jeremy and his efforts on this commission and what it means for wildlife in Nevada and elsewhere, I really struggled because it's so broad and so diverse. I had the opportunity to work with Jeremy when I was a field biologist, and he was a summer student and was mapping crucial movement corridors across roads around the state. And I look at where we are today with a significant number of wildlife overpasses, underpasses, and a lot of those efforts began from that initial mapping effort. I have the opportunity to witness Jeremy as a peer in this environment, but also as a friend to several NDOW employees with whom he attended college, as a husband. I see him now as a father, as a son, as a grandson, as a son-in-law, see him in all those capacities, and as far as his character and integrity and honor and the way that he puts purpose before self and conservation and Nevada's wildlife, it really, there's lessons in it for all of us. One of the things that really has struck me about the way he performed his duties on this commission was with courage and always standing in his purpose. And we coined the term the 8 to Drew vote, where he was on occasion the lone dissenting vote, but he was also selected to be the spokesperson for the legislature. And even though he may have had the lone dissenting vote, he carried this body's decisions forward as though they were his own. And you never heard him in that body say, but I didn't vote for it, but what they voted for. He always carried it forward with the utmost respect for this process and for that decision. Dealt with a lot of really challenging meetings and motions on this body. Some of the more challenging ones were around the issues surrounding trapping, coyotes, predator control, bears, and some of those issues, and garnered the respect from all interests around those issues. But I think there's two things in particular that really stick in my mind as far as the indelible effect on conservation and wildlife, and they extend way beyond just Nevada. The first one is his role at the legislature, and I think there's very few, if anybody, in this room really understands the magnitude of time, energy, and effort that Jeremy gave to conservation and wildlife in this state, in the time and energy and effort that he spent at the Nevada legislature testifying, fostering relationships. And those relationships are long-standing relationships. Those aren't short-term benefits. He's garnered the respect from a very divisive political environment, both parties. And I can tell you that in testifying on controversial issues, sitting at the table and knowing that Commissioner Drew was there next to me was a feeling of comfort, knowing that certainly if I hadn't done my homework, he had, and if I didn't have an answer, that he would. And so I really appreciated the opportunity to work in that capacity with him and again see what he did for conservation in Nevada in particular. The second issue that really sticks in my mind is what Commissioner Drew has done for what we've formerly called the Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations, which is now known as the Alliance for America's Fish and Wildlife. And it was the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners that acted first in drafting a resolution of support. And at this point in time, if you look at the states that have followed that leadership, it's lengthy. I believe there's in excess of 20 states, and there's a list on the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies webpage, and at the very top of that list it says the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners, and that was leadership that was provided by Commissioner Drew. It was his idea and his idea alone, and he reached out and said, hey, can we do this? And I was initially mad that it wasn't my idea. But in looking at a map of the 50 states that exist to show those states that have those resolutions in support of the Alliance for America's Fish and Wildlife, it gives me great pride to see the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners at the very top of that list and providing that national leadership. Along that same vein, I can remember where I was pre-session when I got a phone call late at night from Jeremy, and he took that same idea and said, hey, I got a call from a legislator curious if there were some issues that we would like to bring forward, BDR on some issues. What do you think about a legislative resolution in support of the Alliance for America's Fish and Wildlife? Once again, I was disappointed it wasn't my idea, but I thought that excellent idea. Sailed through the legislature, and again, that leadership that goes well beyond Nevada, that makes us all proud to be Nevadans and put wildlife out there. It's truly an honor to have worked with Jeremy, whether it was an 8-to-Drew vote, whether it was sitting beside him at a controversial legislative hearing. He's set a fine example as a commissioner, as a friend. I don't have words that can convey my appreciation and gratitude and respect for somebody. He's got wisdom and maturity beyond his years. Certainly be missed on this board, but hopefully we'll continue to see him haunting the halls at the legislature. We do have a couple things to award him today, and Mr. Chairman, if you would please present him with these, we would appreciate that. The first is a plaque from the Department of Wildlife proudly recognizing, honoring Chairman Jeremy Drew for 6 years of dedicated service to the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners and for his many contributions for the betterment of wildlife resources of the state of Nevada. Presented to Chairman Jeremy Drew on August 12, 2017. Jeremy, if you would, please. And also, we have this photo and plaque from the Nevada Board of Wildlife Commissioners recognizing Jeremy Drew with heartfelt appreciation of your tireless and unselfish promotion of our lands, wildlife, and outdoor heritage for both current and future generations. Many thanks for all you do for Nevada and its wildlife.
Probably shouldn't look at that right now, but thank you very much. For the record, Jeremy Drew, member of the public, with a different perspective being on this side of the table. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome the commission, the department, and everyone else to my hometown. Obviously, we're very proud of our community. When we were playing sports here, we're the only high school in the county, and our coach always told us, when you put that jersey on, you're not representing your team, you're representing your entire community. And hopefully that's something I did well over the last 6 years. Thank you for the kind gestures and obviously the kind words. See if I can get through all this myself. It's good that I'm going first so I can be a wreck in the back here. But it's always been an honor and a pleasure to serve this state and our wildlife and all the things that we're so passionate about. So probably the first thank you I need to make is to Governor Sandoval for giving me that opportunity. I have a pretty good hunch that word will get back to him. When I started this 6 years ago, I was unmarried, without kids. I'm now married and have a kid, so my perspective has changed a little bit, but I think the timing is right because I'm getting out of here with hair that's still brown mostly, and the fact that I still have it makes me think my timing's pretty good. Clear a few things up. I'm not leaving the commission to pursue political office, so any of those rumors can be put to bed. If you've seen my daughter out here, you basically know that for me personally, it's time for me to be a dad, and for this board, it's time to get some new perspectives, and I don't plan on being a stranger. When I do things, I only know how to do them one speed, and that's full. So in 6 years, you've pretty much gotten all I have to offer. And the reason I've been able to do that is because of my support group, which is second to none. My wife has been with me through this whole process, and she's still elected to marry me, so I think that speaks for her sainthood. My father and father-in-law have provided me with some timeless wisdom and perspective. My sister and brother-in-law have always been there mostly, and what I appreciate most is probably the comic relief they've provided. My grandpa and uncle, just for giving me the passion and exposing me to wildlife and the outdoors from an early age. Most kids don't get that. My mom and daughter serving as my inspiration. My fellow commissioners, cabs, and public, I've learned something from every single one of you, and it's invaluable to me. the relationships I've made and the lessons I've learned from you all. My friends who've stuck by me through thick and thin, talk about that in a minute. And my employer. I don't think most people realize that if you don't have an employer who's willing to support you in what we do, you're not going to be able to do this job very well. And so they've made some tremendous sacrifices, and I'm very appreciative of that. So any credit that I deserve, any kind words that you say from this point forward really resonates on those people just as much as it resonates to me. Looking back over the last 6 years, we've accomplished a lot. I'm one of those guys where I think process is every bit as important as product. And looking at you all and knowing the people in this room and seeing what's changed in the last 6 years, I think we can be very, very proud of our collective accomplishments and how we're able to achieve those accomplishments. Two things stood out to me from the last legislative session. There was some discussion on maybe changing some of the seats on this board. And I had a very candid conversation with one of the people that was looking into that. In the conversation, it came up that there was some concern with the definition of the conservation seat. And that was a pretty easy issue to address to me. And I said, all 9 people who serve on this board are conservationists. So in my opinion, it's a non-issue. And I strongly believe that. I also had an opportunity to address the wildlife luncheon that NDOW did a great job with. And kind of the message that I presented there was, just looking at my family and where we've come in terms of wildlife management and where we're going to go. My grandfather, who got me into hunting and fishing, was born in Reno in 1931, and I think about what he's seen in the changes in our resources and in the changes of our lands in that time. And certainly we've had some setbacks from a wildlife standpoint, but at the end of the day, really the wildlife resources that we enjoy have come a long, long ways, and that's the result of a lot of passionate work from the department and commissions before us. So I look at that personally and I think to myself, don't screw it up, on one hand. And then I look at my daughter and think about what she's going to see for the next 50 years. And I guess what I take from that is, let's build on our success. Let's not be satisfied with where we are today. Let's continue to build and go forward collectively using those lessons learned. And I'll tell you, the issues, the tactics, the challenges that are before us are much harder now, I think, than they ever have been in the past. So there's more work to do, and I think in a more challenging time. Obviously, I didn't join the commission as a social engagement. I saw what I believe to be a broken process, and I believe that if you're going to criticize something or someone, you better be willing to be part of the solution. And again, thanks to the governor for giving me that opportunity. I feel very good about where we are and where this commission's going. I have no reservations sitting in the audience, knowing the people and what's in their hearts, both from the department standpoint and from the commission standpoint. This process is going to go on long after I step back from being a commissioner, and much to the chagrin of some, I'm probably not going to go away. So, I've certainly found out who my friends are in this process. If you can sit in here and disagree with all your heart and walk outside of the room and still shake hands like it never ever happened, that's a true friend. If you can joke about that and what just happened in the next 30 seconds after you walk outside of this room, you're a very, very good friend. And over the last 6 years, I've made a lot of new friends, and those friends sit before me and around me today. And these are people that I'd do anything for, and to whom my door and my phone is absolutely always open, except maybe when I'm out of service, which may occur a few more days than it did before. So I don't plan on being a stranger. I'll still be engaged in this process. And rather than embarrass you all individually, as I'm sure I'll probably take some embarrassment in the next few minutes, in closing, I would simply say that certainly people are entitled to criticizing the department and this commission. And I'd point out that criticism is a pretty easy thing to do. But until you sit in those chairs, no one can understand how tough the job and how thankless it truly is. What no one can criticize